Hello and welcome to Legislative Report with your state legislator, Jack Rader, representing the 176th District in Monroe County. My name is Herb Logan and I'm here with Representative Rader. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
We have a lot of things we want to discuss today. Normally this time of the year, state legislature is dealing with the budget. The state budget is front and center.
Yes.
But there are other things that have been happening that are big ticket items that also, and some of them relate to the budget. So we're going to talk about those. But first I wanted to ask you, you're 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, let's say, into the job as a freshman legislator. How are things going? How are things going back in the district?
Well, I believe they're going very well, but the people will let me know about that. I enjoy doing the job very much, and we're doing big ticket items, things that matter to our district. And I enjoy tackling those issues and trying make them work out for the people in my district. A lot of them have been issues for a long time, and I think we need to move them forward and get something done.
And what are you finding about the pace, the schedule in Harrisburg versus the time you spend back in the district?
Oh, that doesn't bother me. I enjoy Harrisburg. I enjoy being back home also. I have two dogs, and I enjoy being with them when I go back. But there's a lot to do, but a lot to accomplish, and I think we're getting it done.
Excellent. Well, let's talk about some of those things we're getting done. I mentioned 3 big ticket items. We're going to talk about reducing the size of the legislature. We're going to talk about pensions. We're going to talk about property taxes. But let's start with the reducing the size of the legislature. Now, some people might look at you and they hear about that issue and they say, well, why would you want to vote yourself out of a job? So talk about how you feel about that particular issue.
I kind of have a little different point of view on reducing the size of the legislature. I want to reduce costs in legislature. I think that's important to do. But reducing the size is not something I'm in favor of. I think that just takes representation away from the smaller rural districts. We just got a Senate district in our county. We have 3 representatives now. I think we have a lot more representation in Harrisburg than we've had before, and I hate to see us lose that. There's no guarantee in how those districts would be redrawn. If we were connected to an area where they have a lot more people than we have, then our district all of a sudden doesn't matter so much. So I was against that. It has to be voted in, passed twice by the House, has to be passed by the Senate, and then it would go to the people. I was against that the first time. I would be against it the second time. I think we have the representation that we need in Monroe County, and I hate to lose that at this point, not knowing what it would look like in the future. It's kind of open-ended, and I wouldn't vote for something like that. I think we need what we have. The people can come to my office. They know where I live. You're right there dealing with them. I hate to see us have somebody representing us from some other place. We've had that in the past. Hasn't worked out so great, and I hate to see us go back to that again. So I was against that, and that's why, but that doesn't mean I don't want to reduce costs. I do. Right. I just think going that route just reduces representation for a rural district like what I represent.
Now, some proponents have said the advancements in technology have made it easier for representatives to keep in touch with their constituents with perhaps a wider constituent base. Again, you feel like the personal touch yes. means something, don't you?
I'm not big in technology, although we use it. I'd rather talk to people face to face and go out within the district, and they can come to me anytime. They give my office a call, and I'd be more than happy to meet with people. I met with quite a few people. I want to meet with a lot more, and that's the best way to promote your feelings and different issues. I like to get out in front of the issues, tell people where I stand on them. I will be truthful to them, and I think the best way to do that is one-on-one or in groups, small groups, that they can see the people. The representative is there, he's talking to them, he's accessible, and I think that's very important to a rural area where we seem to get shortchanged a lot on issues. Well, I'm there, I live there, and I think I can best represent the people in my district. And I hate to see us have a large district and most of the representation goes someplace else. I don't think that would be fair to the people that I represent or Monroe County.
And you alluded to the idea that this has to pass twice. In other words,
yes.
in one 2-year session, it's got to pass. It's got to pass in the next 2-year session, which won't begin until 2017.
And then it wouldn't, actually the census would have to be redone and redraw the districts after that.
Right.
But I don't think it's a good deal for my people, and so I will vote that way. That doesn't mean I don't think we should lower government costs. I think we should. I think there are a lot of different ways to do that. This actually doesn't lower the cost that much. Right. It does a little bit, but it does take away, I believe, representation from the people that live in my district.
Okay. Well, let's move on to a particular sticky pocketbook issue with not just your constituents, but constituents across the state of Pennsylvania, and that is the issue of property taxes. This is something that's been a going on for decades here in
Yes, it has
Harrisburg,
been.
trying to reform the system, trying to come up with the fairest way
Yes.
of dealing with property taxes. Tell us what the latest is. The House had an important vote recently. What is the latest with property taxes?
The latest is we finally passed something out of the House. Yes, we've been talking about it for decades. When I ran on a total elimination. I believe that would be the best policy, and I think that would be promote economic growth and really help people in their homes. That is not something that would pass the House. So we worked with the Democratic side. It was a bipartisan bill. We passed something just a week or two ago that I believe moves the issue forward. If we didn't pass anything, this wouldn't be in the budget process, and it would be done for the year. So we passed something which I'm not crazy about some of the reforms in it, but it is something, and it moves the ball forward and keeps the issue being talked about. Ours is, for our district, is about between 40 and 50% property tax reduction, has cost controls. It's a dollar for dollar, so if you put a dollar into the school district, they have to lower taxes by $1, and it also goes towards the millage, which helps reduce the cost of bringing the school taxes back up again. When you talk about tax reform, you want something that where you don't reform it, you bring the cost down, and it goes right back up again.
Right.
This has some cost controls on it. It doesn't expand the sales tax base. I think it's the best deal we could get out of the Senate or the House. This moves the bill to the Senate now. The Senate says they're for property tax reform. The governor says he's for property tax reform. I think all the players are for property tax reform. I would be extremely disappointed, but I'm a freshman. I know I can be disappointed. I'd be extremely disappointed if we didn't get property tax reform, something
Right.
on the table for this budget process. I think we can. I think the players all want it.
Right.
So I think we can do something. And then we can, if we want more later on, I'm for, like I said, I'm for the 100% solution. That's not something that would pass the House. I am for something that can get done. We're tired of talking about it. We need to move the ball forward on this issue. I think the House has. I'm for talking more about it. And even if we get something done this time around, I'm for doing more later on.
Okay. And when we talk about property tax relief, we're not talking about just lowering taxes. It means shifting taxes.
Right. Yes.
And I think sometimes constituents have a hard time
Yeah, it's a tax shift.
understanding that.
Yes.
So we have to, if the taxes are going to be lowered for property taxes, that money that goes to school districts has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
So let's just, without getting too much into the details, but there are some important details
Yes, there are.
regarding the shift. Go over again what would change with taxes if with this plan, which does provide $5 billion, I believe, of tax relief in property tax.
What it does is shifts it to sales tax and income tax, and I won't go over the numbers because what happens is it's going to go to the Senate, they'll probably change it, it's going to go to the governor, it's going to be changed again. So the numbers right now aren't important, the concept is what is important,
Right.
but it is the tax shift. You just can't say, okay, we don't know the money. For schools, the money's got to come from somewhere. So it is a tax shift. It goes to sales and income tax, and it's important that you understand that, but the most important thing about it is it will reduce property taxes, and our plan does now allow it to increase the way, and we want to be upfront with people. A lot of times you hear, well, this plan does this, this, and that, and then it never does.
Right.
But I think our plan does what it says it's going to do. It shifts it into something I think is more fair and equitable. If you can't afford to buy something because the sales tax is too high, you don't do it. But right now, if you can't afford your property tax, you lose your home. And when I campaigned, I knocked on a lot of doors, a lot of empty homes. We had in our district, we have to do something about property tax reform. We talked about it long enough. This plan does accomplish something. It doesn't do everything I would like. I had to vote against some amendments because we need Democratic support for the bill, or it wouldn't have passed. So I voted against some things I actually for, which is the political way. But I needed the bill. We passed the bill. That's the most important thing. It's still on the table. That was the most important thing. We couldn't not talk about it from the budget process. We couldn't wait another year for property tax reform in my district. So we are talking about it. It's to the Senate now. The governor says he's for it. It's a tax shift, but it does give tax relief to the people in my district, and that's the most important thing. It's not 100% what I want. A lot of things I don't like in it, but it does provide relief, and that's the most important thing at this point. And then later on we can tackle other issues.
And the population, that demographic, I should say, that is most affected by property taxes, not exclusively, but is our seniors out there.
Right.
The folks on fixed incomes. And that's
People
why
on
this
fixed
is such a heartbreaking issue in a lot of cases, because I'm sure you've run into seniors
Yes.
who have said, I can't afford to stay in
Well,
my home.
it
I have
is
to lose it.
it is really sad. When I was campaigning, I went to one home. The gentleman says he doesn't eat occasionally to try to save for property taxes. You can't do that. Another gentleman was in the military. He said, I have one more year. After that, I'm going to have to move out of the area. I've lived here my whole life. I don't want to do that. So you hear all kinds of stories like that. It's really heartbreaking. But it's not just people on fixed income. It's other families too. Young people, they can afford a mortgage. I hear this all the time, but they can't afford the property taxes. So if we want those people to stay in Pennsylvania, to stay in my district, we have to allow them to do that and have property tax reform, which would help. Also, small businesses. I operate a
Right.
small business. If you get some kind of property tax reform there and lower the cost, that's why I like the 100% plan. If they had all that money back in their pocket, I know I would hire more people, do more things in my business. Economic growth would be there. So to me, if you do it properly, you help people stay in their homes, you help economic growth, you help a lot of people in Pennsylvania, and that's what I'm after.
The last thing I want to mention on the property tax part of it, a detail again, which I don't think constituents know totally what it means, is the whole concept of dollar for dollar.
Yes.
Now, Governor Wolf's plan, as I understand it, did not provide a relief, but it wasn't a dollar for dollar
Right,
relief.
and that's-
what is meant by the idea of dollar for dollar when you're talking property
Okay,
tax?
our plan gives, if you give $2, I'm making an easy number, $2 to the school district, they have to lower the school taxes, $2. Governor
That would be the
Wolf-
state giving the school district $2.
Yeah. So the governor's plan does not do that, and ours actually tax the millage, which makes it more difficult to raise the taxes back up. So in Act 1, it tax the millage, so the millage would actually have to drop.
Got it.
So I think it's a better plan than the governor's, and we don't expand the sales tax either. It's only in the items that are on sales tax now,
Right.
whereas the governor's plan goes into a lot of areas where I wouldn't go.
Right.
But it's a good plan. It's going to be under negotiation. It's not the final plan. I wish it were.
Right.
Actually, I wish it was 100% reduction, but it can't be that not to pass the House at this point.
Well, here's another sticky fiscal issue, and that has to do with pensions.
Yes.
State pensions, and to some degree in some parts of the states, there's municipal pension issues, but let's talk about the state pensions
Yes.
for state employees, school teachers and state
Right.
employees. Again, let's talk first of all about what the problem is and what would happen if nothing was done.
Well, we do have an issue with pensions, and I know when the governor was running, he said we didn't. We do. I think we all understand that. Even the governor understands that. So we have to do something. I don't think it would be fair to put it on the backs of the school teachers, people in the system currently. They didn't make the mistakes. There are a lot of people that made mistakes in the past, the legislature, the past governors, multiple governors. So people made mistakes, and it's not fair to the people in the system to penalize them. That being said, the system isn't working, so we have to fix it. I would like to see something that would not impact the people in the system now, just new people coming into the system, and then there would probably be a 4 or 5 year window or longer where we would have to help fund the cost of the pension. But I don't think it would be fair. We made promises to those people, and I like to try and keep my promises. It wasn't their fault that the system's not working, but mistakes were made. It has to be fixed. That's the type of plan I would like to see come out of the House. I think it can. Senate has a different version, but I think it's something that would be more fair to the people within the system.
And quickly, we only have about a minute left, but there was a bill that passed. It was
Yes.
sponsored by Representative Warren Kampf.
Yes.
That does move new employees in, does do some of the things you were just talking about,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, and I would probably be in favor of something like that, just as long as we don't impact people within the system now. They were made promises, and even if the promises were too heavy to be, at the time, we made them, and we shouldn't have made them, but we did. So I think we should keep our promises to them and make the system work with new employees coming in. I think we can do that.
Well, we've hit on those 3 issues we talked about. Of course, we didn't get a chance to talk about the budget, but
That's
those
coming
issues
up.
impact the budget, and there's so much to go with that. We'll have you back to talk more about the budget when we know more.
Great.
We're just kind of getting into budget season right now. You've gotten your feet wet
Yes,
now
I
as a
have.
legislator, and you have that to look forward to. Budget season coming up. You look forward to hopefully getting one done
Yes,
on time.
I think everything's on the table to accomplish the budget, and we could do it on time if we so desire, and I hope we do.
Well, very, very good. Well, thank you for joining me, and we'll have you back to talk more, give an update to your constituents
Great. Thank
a
you
little
very
bit
much.
later on.
Thanks for having me.
And that is all the time we have for this program. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions for Representative Rader, you can reach him at his district office or through his website or Facebook, and that information will be on your screen in a moment. Thanks for watching Legislative Report with your state representative, Jack Rader.